I received a text message when I was in hospital one night from someone saying, RIP, nice knowing you. Now, I was about 16 and I thought,
wow,
I can't go back to that school and people don't know what I'm going through.
Hey guys, welcome to the Happy Way podcast, your go-to place for all things fun, happiness, well-being, growth, trust and diversity. I am your host, Melissa Fideli, and I am here to inspire and connect everyone who chooses health and happiness so you can be your healthiest self and live life the happy way. Hello, wonderful people. Today we have Emmah Money on the show, who is here to empower you to be your best. Emmah is a cystic fibrosis warrior. She was the 2020 Australian of the Year SA Local Hero, author, and a motivational speaker. Despite her condition, Emmah is the most resilient, empowered, and determined woman with the most incredible outlook and passion for life. Emmah is a true example of if you have the right mindset, anything is truly possible for you. So hello, Emmah. Thank you for coming on the show.
That's a mouthful of an introduction.
Oh, it's all true though. As I was doing my research on you for the, getting prepared, I was like, what hasn't this woman done?
It's really overwhelming to hear that when it's read out because I think, oh my God, I did do that. Yeah, that's me.
Amazing.
So, yes, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to just get into your life and your journey and just, your mindset is incredible. And it's like, if we can take a little bit of that from today's podcast and apply that to our own lives, I feel like, all right, we're going to get shit done.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm very energetic. So hopefully for the listeners, they can feel that through the
I'm sure
the ears
they
today.
will. Absolutely. So I want to give the listeners a really good background into your life.
Sure.
Can you explain what cystic fibrosis is and how this has impacted your life?
Okay. Well, to start with, I just want to say, and I always say this when my voice sounds like this, right? And we were talking about it before, but people with cystic fibrosis have that husky, sexy voice. Mine is very husky, sexy today because we cough so much. So cystic fibrosis is a lung disease. Primarily affects lungs and digestive system. So the coughing is a constant chronic cough, which plays a bit of a toll on the back of your throat, obviously, and then you end up sounding like this.
Very sexy.
So it is. I did have a bit of a cough last night. Anyway, so how it, I guess, affects me personally, it affects everyone differently. It's actually really hard to believe that in Australia, it is the most common life-threatening hereditary illness affecting Australians. Every 4 days in Australia, a baby is born with CF, and 1 in 25 Aussies carry the gene and are completely unaware because it's not symptomatic. So it's very common. And the way babies are diagnosed, you're diagnosed at birth, is there's a couple of ways. We've got very salty skin, so we sweat a lot of that out. So we actually have to have sweat or salt replacement tablets. But when a baby's born, they do a heel prick test, and there's a couple of other tests that can be done obviously at birth. But the big one for myself is when a baby's born, they pass a poo, meconium ileus. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. It's every baby does it. It's like a black tar sort of like poo. Now, if you don't pass that, then that's a given that the baby has cystic fibrosis. I still have a scar on my stomach from that procedure. That gave me a lot of trouble for about 6 months. So for me, the mucus is a lot thicker and stickier, which causes trouble to breathe. Pancreatic enzymes I have to have every single day when I eat. I used to take up to 60 tablets a day to digest my food. And then on top of that, I have inhaled antibiotics in the morning. So anyone that's got asthma or has seen a nebulizer, that's the mornings. We do it all over again in the evening. And it's just to stay healthy. And that's hard. Yeah. But in other ways it affects me, I mean, COVID's been a really funny thing, right? It's obviously on the topic for so many people. Yeah. And everyone has said, well, how have you gone? How are you feeling about that? And it's actually been, I'm very blasé with it, but for a good reason. But it's kind of made the rest of the world accidentally aware of what it's like to live with cystic fibrosis because I have to wear a mask when I'm out and about. People with cystic fibrosis are not allowed to be in touch with each other in the same room because we carry different bugs that could be life-threatening to each other. So isolating is a massive thing for us. So the biggest thing with CF, though, is if I was to say to you, hey, I've got a life-threatening lung disease, you wouldn't believe it. It's an invisible illness. So it's definitely taught me the mindset to never judge a book by its cover, because you just don't know what somebody's going through. And, 2 weeks, this time last week I was in hospital and I've undergone treatment for the last 2 weeks. I had a severe chest infection and it was actually quite scary. I was coughing up blood and had to sort of admit to myself that I wasn't okay and needed to seek medical attention. So I landed up in hospital and had, the intravenous treatment to help kill the bacterial infections. Yeah. That for me happens, once or twice a year where I'm out for 2 weeks with that. But yeah, CF's a very hidden illness. And I think for me, if anything, they say again, and the statistics change, but the life expectancy for someone with CF is 37. Now, I'm 35 this year. I'm a mum of 2. And I tell everyone I'm not a carton of milk. I don't have a use-by date. So I am on a mission to prove that expiry date wrong. I think it's gone up a little bit now, and we've just had a new life-changing drug approved on the PBS, which is, I've seen people that have been on the lung transplant list and have been removed off of it because of this drug. Like, it's amazing. So I feel like I'm going to be okay for a bit longer. And I think with the treatment and my mindset and what I'm doing in the world, watch out.
Absolutely.
I'm unstoppable.
You're so full of life. And
try to be.
Yeah, nothing's going to stop you.
No.
I love it. Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea that it was so common as well.
It is. And I think, I often talk of, and I always talk about some pivotal, I guess, important parts of my world. And for me, everyone's probably listening. How many people have actually lost a friend in life? It's a little bit morbid to talk about, but I was 6 when I remember the first person with cystic fibrosis passing away, a 12-year-old girl. And then as I grew up, a funeral became an annual event. Like, that's not okay. Yeah, no. So I've grown up around so many people that have lost because lung deterioration has happened and their lungs have slowly just given way. And, the amount of friends I've seen who have undergone lung transplants that whilst I see that as it is a great thing. It gives you a second chance at life. So I'm a big advocate for organ donation. But I've also seen the sadness of lungs, rejecting the new body and watching those people deteriorate all over again. So people don't see that. And mentally, there is a whole nother element. I feel like it's not just the lungs and digestive system. There's a mental capacity inside of that as well. So I think my mission, my story's pretty unique, as you'll get to learn. And I think I've just learned that, everyone's going through something in their life, no matter what it is. And it really doesn't hurt to be kind to other people. And, the only person that can control what, positive things are going to happen is you. So it starts with you. And if I can sprinkle a little bit of glitter in the world by doing what I do and help someone know that they're not alone and it's okay. And you know what? Let's defy the odds, regardless, disability, visible, invisible. It shouldn't be an excuse or a reason to fail. And I'm going to be an example for that.
You are amazing. I'm already so inspired. I've asked you one question.
I know. I talk a lot. Sorry.
I love it. So let's get into your story because you have a truly inspiring story and journey. Your journey through life has been incredible. You've defied the odds. You've overcome so many challenges. Can you tell us about this and what is it that keeps you pushing forward so you can inspire so many people along the way?
Well, to be honest, I'll give you the once upon a time.
Yeah, please do.
When I was born, I was given up for adoption. I was only a couple of days old and my biological family were told that this baby, would not survive through her childhood. So they made the right decision for them, and that was to give me up for adoption. Now, they were a family that were new to Australia from Greece with very little language, Australian English language, let alone the knowledge of CF. So that was the right decision for them. Now, park that for a minute because that comes back into what happened. Now, I've got a biological brother who's 4 years older than I am, and a younger sister, 14 months younger to be exact. Anyway, park that one. So my parents that adopted me, my adoptive parents are my parents. I'm very obviously adopted. My dad is a black man and my mum she's English. So we look nothing alike. And I'm a Greek goddess is what I tell them. I've come from this Greek family and, I'm the Greek goddess of the family. And I was the chosen one.
Yeah, so you were.
My dad is probably the most amazing person I can talk of. Now, it's a bit soon to be talking about this, but you're the first person I'll go into it with. We sadly lost my dad about 6 weeks ago. And my dad, when I was adopted, he was a paraplegic with one leg, one hip, and he had kidneys at that point, but him and my mum wanted to adopt a baby to give them a life, and sort of Dad's disability didn't define him or anything, and they wanted to give a child that opportunity to live a normal, I say normal, like what is normal?
Yeah, what is normal?
Normal life. And they adopted me, and it was kind of, we had a bit of a joke about it. It was fast-tracked because my dad actually was going off to Seoul to compete in the Paralympics representing Australia in weightlifting.
Wow.
So from the get-go, my mindset, I think I've grown up from that foundation that he was very visibly disabled, but it didn't stop him from being the most able dad, probably more able than an able-bodied man, to be honest, in some degree, and just the lessons and love that my parents had given me. Now, I truly believe if I grew up with my biological family, I wouldn't be here today. But the mindset that I've got from to be positive and to just get on with it is from my parents. I'll tell you a little quick story about my dad, because this is really important, and I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I've always spoken of my dad's journey to an extent, but you can see where I get my zest and resilience from.
Wow.
When COVID hit, COVID, Dad was on the way to dialysis. Now, he had no kidneys and he was dialysed 3 times a week. He was on the way to dialysis, driving down the hill, the taxi driver was, and he nodded off the taxi driver for a second, and my dad screamed out to stop, and he catapulted out of the wheelchair and snapped the leg that he did have. Now, long story short, that resulted in Dad having to have that leg amputated. So then what happened is we went through a good few months where we nearly lost my dad because of his health being so ill. And he was very hard. He's like, if you think of Humpty Dumpty is what I would always say to call him, because, he would fall off, but we couldn't put him back together, but he always came back somehow. Now, over the last few years, I have watched my dad mentally disappear and become invalid. And this is someone that I've looked to my entire life that I'm like, hey, if Dad can do it, I can do it. This is a man that has to get up and go to dialysis every second day, and if he doesn't, he'll die. For me with CF, if I don't do my treatment, whilst it's minimal in some degree, it's not going to be an overnight I'm going to die, but it's going to be a longer and a quicker process to have lung deterioration. So he inspired me to go, just get on with it. And he'd always tell us that there's always someone worse off in the world than us. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like, you can, and that's okay, but you got to learn to actually pull yourself out of it. Yeah. Now, during the period of this last few years with Dad, there's a song by Guy Sebastian, Standing With You, and that sort of became our family song because we could not help my dad mentally. It was a journey that he needed to go through. And I think this is an important lesson for anybody, that you can't help someone that won't help themselves or can't help themselves. We had so much and have so much love for him and supported him and all of that and beyond. And I watched him become so distant and just didn't, it was like an airhead almost of him not being present anymore. In saying all of that, we got him better again, and we always seemed to bring him back, and, we were very supportive. And then last year he fell very ill, and we had many, many visits into intensive care where we were sat into a room saying he's going to pass and we've got to get ready to say goodbye. But we knew he wasn't ready, and we just held on all hope and faith. And it sounds really cliche, and, that doesn't happen in real life. But I tell you what, there is that many times in his life that he nearly died, and I can tell you we've had that many conversations that he's going to go. Finally, the last day I spent with him was the day before he passed, and we had some really beautiful chats, but he wasn't ready, and he told me that he wasn't ready. He's got grandchildren and he didn't want to go. And now I'm like, he knows what my plans in life were and my goals and what I'm doing, and he was my biggest supporter, as my mum is as well. But Dad, I was a daddy's girl. Yeah. So if anything now, my inspiration is to go, you know what, he proved everyone wrong in so many ways. He went and did things the unimaginable. He was a Muslim and converted to Christianity. Like, that's a massive thing too, back when we were younger. But my point is he followed his heart, never took no for an answer, failed, tried again until he was successful. And I think we are his greatest legacy. So my zest now is to be like, all right, game on. What else can I do? And, where to next?
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What a role model to have in life, and given the circumstances and your journey that you've been on, you were really blessed with someone who has shown you as an example how to fight and how to be resilient.
It's a big thing. And I think when people say, who's your hero and who do you look up to, I speak of him. So fast forward all those years, right? That was a side story I told you I'd talk about.
Yeah, okay. Get into the other stuff.
Other stuff. So when I was about 16, I spent a lot of my time in and out of hospital. I think many of us can relate to having some form of bullying throughout, high school. And for me, I found as I've gotten older, when people don't understand something, they can deal with it in two ways. They can be ignorant and, the other one is to be nasty in some way or just completely ignore what it is. So I did go through bullying. One story I always tell because I think it showed from a young age that I was ready to, I knew I was going to make a difference in the world, is something I did with self-confidence. So there was this high school here in Adelaide I really wanted to go to, and it was just ridiculously expensive. There was no way my parents could afford it. So I didn't tell my mum, but I was in year 7 and I created a PowerPoint presentation and I sent it to the school and said, this is who I am. You need me at your school. I'm going to be an asset. Anyway, I was given a full scholarship to that school.
Wow.
And I remember and I talk of it because I believed in me and I knew what I could offer, and it didn't matter. I could have had nothing, but I had that confidence. And that was probably the first pivotal moment where I realised that I thought outside the square and I made something happen, and I was really blessed to do that. But unfortunately, I did go through quite a lot of bullying at that school because I fell really ill very quickly. So a lot of times I was in hospital when people didn't understand that. So then I got to year 11, and this is pivotal in my story too. So I got to year 11 and I'd been so sick. The bullying was not great. Mum never bubble wrapped me. If I was sick, it was, well, you need to be in hospital or, you need to do this and that. So she always kind of called my bluff. I was treated, like everyone else. First day of year 11, I walked into the homeroom and all the girls that had bullied me over the last few years were all in that room, and I walked straight out. Anyway, I went home sick and Mum came to pick me up and she said, if you're sick, we're driving straight to the hospital. And I knew in my head I wasn't actually that CF sick, but what I did know is I couldn't go back there. So this was a big role for me too, a big lesson, because I mentally believed it. So it happened. I fell so crook so quickly and I went downhill because in my head I was like, you're sick, Emmah, you're sick, Emmah. And I was extremely unwell. I was in hospital for quite a long time and I ended up getting a wish granted from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I wished to the unwishable wish, which was to model surfwear clothing and keep all the clothes, which came true. And I did that. But one thing my dad had sent a message to the school saying I was sick, and I received a text message when I was in hospital one night from someone saying, RIP, nice knowing you. Now, I was about 16 and I thought, wow, I can't go back to that school and people don't know what I'm going through. So that mentality.
I got chills. That's horrible.
It was. And I thought, I've never been nasty to anybody and I really struggled. It was a bit of a mental battle. So I had this wish and I came back from the wish and I was actually healthy, and Mum was like, right, we got to go back to school. And I was like, I can't go back to that school. There's no way. So my younger sister was at a different school in Adelaide and I ended up starting at her school. The bullying started again because I started in year 11 halfway through and I was what was seemed to be this model because I was on posters and whatnot. I actually wasn't modelling because I was picked to be a model, in the traditional way of casting a model. I was chosen because I had cystic fibrosis and that was my wish and there was a lot behind it. But I had girls, throwing eggs at the car that I was driving, girls, pushing me up in the lockers, tripping me over. There was a lot of things that were said. I remember being invited to a sleepover and one of the girls told the bullies of my school that I was, at her house in a tent in the backyard, and they all came and sabotaged me in the tent when my friend had left to run inside to go to the toilet quickly. And there was a lot more that went on. So it was horrible, really horrible. So I ended up really random, but I still seemed to have this confidence. I had a life outside of school. Like I had CF going on. I had friends passing away. I had 2-3 weeks at a time where I'd be absent. So at the end of year 11, there was a national magazine, Girlfriend magazine. I don't know if you remember Girlfriend.
Yes, I loved Girlfriend.
Yes. And then there's Dolly, the Dolly Doctor.
Yes, I remember all of those.
So I, again, thought, you know what, my dad's never felt sorry for himself. He just gets on with it. And that's what I had to do. So Girlfriend had this competition where you had to write in what your dream in life is and what you've done to achieve it so far. Now, when I'm talking about I had a life outside of school, I've always done a lot of fundraising for cystic fibrosis. You know, I've raised over $60,000, $70,000 towards research and services for CF. I've always raised awareness. I love being in front of the camera. And for me, one thing I loved is that I wanted to prove that CF meant that I could still, you know, do those glamorous things. You never could Google a girl with cystic fibrosis and see someone glamorous pop up. So I wanted to change that. I wanted people to Google my name. So I ended up writing in what I'd done and all of that. I ended up winning the competition, and that opened up a huge, you know, there was so much more. I won't keep going on in depth with everything because I'll be here for hours, but the key points to that part of my life was I wrote my first autobiography at 17. It was published because that same year I won that competition, I found my birth family here in Adelaide by accident after they were told I was dead. So my brother, who's 4 years older, remembers my funeral, and that story itself was, I don't even know how to explain that. Even talking that out loud gives me goosebumps. So I since came to learn that my birth father had orchestrated a phone call to be given to my birth mother to tell her that the baby they gave up for adoption died. And my brother only a few years ago, which is really, you know, it's an unfinished sort of story, but only a few years ago he told me he remembers driving past a cemetery here in Adelaide to where she would look for my stone, which was really hard to hear. You know, I've got kids and I just couldn't imagine at that age what that has done.
Yeah.
Anyway, that blew up, as you could imagine. So I used to journal all the time. That was very therapeutic for me, and write poetry and all of that stuff. And when I won Girlfriend, it just sort of all came out. I also became the National Youth Ambassador of Australia for cystic fibrosis, and I was travelling all over the country as well as doing year 12 and, you know, having this CF life, and my life got busy. But I was healthy, and I graduated high school, something I never thought I would do. And then I've travelled the world, the States, I've done Europe, I did everything that I didn't think I could do. I made it all happen. And it's because obviously I'm blessed with the support that I've had. And everyone goes, oh God, here she goes again, but she'll do it. Like, watch her. And I will, and I do. And I will bring people now on that journey with me. And you know, fast forward all this time later, the most amazing thing probably to date is babies. So CF Mummy, which is me, started because I was told I could never, men with CF, I lie, men with cystic fibrosis are infertile, majority, 98%. Yeah. And for me, I woke up one day and it was like this switch went on and I was ready to be a mum. But God forbid a woman with cystic fibrosis was to have a baby. Yeah. So I started researching it all, and one of the biggest things I found that I was reading is, why would you have a baby if you know you're going to die and not be here to see it grow up? And there was a lot of negativity around it. But then I thought, hold on, I've got a dad in a wheelchair and he kicks ass. Why can't I do it? And then it was almost like it was meant to be. And then I fell pregnant not long after, naturally, which was a blessing. I was really healthy throughout my pregnancy. And I had my beautiful miracle baby, I call her, Ava. And 2 years later, I had my son, Logan. So I've got Ava and Logie. And, you know, they're eight, well, what are they? I can't even think. Yeah, 8, nearly 9 and nearly 7. Yeah. And they're my reason. And I created CF Mummy just to show what living with CF and being pregnant was like. Yeah. And then CF Mummy evolved. And you know, you can ask me questions in a minute about a few bits because I'm sure there's a couple, but fast forward to where it's got to now is, you know, 2020 I won Australian of the Year Local Hero for SA because of the work that I do within the community. I love volunteering my time to give back to others, and I've since created, you know, my business with a few different, I guess, titles with things that I do, but CF Mummy's grown not just to the CF community anymore, and it's like, wow, how did I get here? And here I am. So
incredible.
There's probably a bit too much of information.
No, what a story. So at 17, you published your first book. Yep. You're a motivational speaker And your list of achievements is very long and impressive, so I'm not
Thank
even going to
you.
go through them all. How do you stay so dedicated to your dreams? We all have bad days. I'm sure you do too. So when that self-doubt comes in, what do you do on those days? What do you tell yourself? How do you move through the doubt and kind of push forward?
Yeah, good question. I think for me personally, I go into almost a bit of an anxiety attack, and I'm notorious for just not answering my phone if I'm feeling like that, because I have this, persona of how I want people to perceive me, that I'm happy and I'm bright and I'm bubbly, which I am, but even the best have bad days. And what I've learned, it sounds really dicky, but it's okay to just have a day on the couch and just be negative and think all those bad negative thoughts, but don't hate yourself. Don't punch yourself up about it. For me, I'll have a hot bath and I'll just sit and binge on Netflix and pretend that I'm living one of those, lifestyles that we don't live, or you just kind of get consumed into a series and binge. I think I've learned it's really important to not, and again, it's, one of those cliche sayings, it's okay not to be okay, but it really is. What's important is, like you said, how do you get out of that and what do you do? For me, I actually find myself writing, whether it's mentally or on a piece of paper, I will sort of look at why I'm feeling like shit, really. And then with that list, I'll look at, the first 3 reasons and how many of those things on my list do I have control over? You cannot control everything. So the things you don't have control on, get rid of it. Like this, whatever's going to be is going to be. And the things you do have control on or over, that's where you can then start working through them and going, all right, I've got control over this. Like tomorrow I got to go food shopping because there's no food in the fridge. It's a small task, but we all have to do that, whoever you are. Could be a CEO of a big company or, whatever your role is, you're still a human, and we still have those basic everyday to-dos. So start simple, and it's like, all right, I've got to make a shopping list, and set yourself just some basic things for the next day, and then take the next couple of days as it comes, because we live in a world where we're so suffocated with influence or, wrongful information. Social media, yes, I'm on it, but even that, I've had to do the unfollow of a few things so that I don't get consumed. That's a whole element in itself. I've got friends that don't even have social media, and I'm like, how do you not have it? We all have it, But I think it's important just to strip it all back, go back to basics, keep it simple, and work out for yourself what it is that you've got control over and work through it. And then, really good example, this last week being so sick for me, when we were going through the loss of my dad, and my children had to watch us go through that. We were a very close family, and they saw him suffering, and they saw him the night before. And seeing how that affected them, you still got to be positive. So when I got sick and they saw me how sick I was, they straight away thought, is this going to happen to mummy? And so I crashed rock bottom, and in hospital, I felt like CF had won, and I was angry. I was disappointed, and I just kind of wanted to tell it where to go, but I had no control over that. I had to lay there and just let it be what it is. Couple of days in, there was I'd find everything to be negative about, because of course it's not what I wanted, but I just had to go through it. And then day 7, 8 hit me, where the drugs finally had killed off the bugs. Day 8 happened, and I was like, shit, I've got this like new energy. I've got this glow again. And I slowly just started tapping away and planning an event at the moment, something I'll talk about in a moment, what I'm doing moving forward. But I was able to just get my glow back, really, because I did rest, recover. And my nurse said to me on Tuesday when I had the needle out, he said, Emma, look, I'm not going to lie, you looked like shit last week. And I was like, thanks. And he goes, but I'm telling you, because I don't even know who you are today, because I rocked in my activewear, as I'm always in activewear. It's just what I do. I do go to the gym, love the gym. I think all of us are notorious, but I earn my rights to wear my activewear every day. But it was so nice to hear that I looked like shit, to then know I was better, and I got my glow back, but only I could sort of get that glow back on my own. And I've made a list, and that list is, I always say I like to have a list of possibles, not impossibles, because
I like that, because
it's a good thing.
Like you said, you got to feel the feelings.
You do.
Feel it when if you're having a bad day, feel it, but then take action.
Yeah.
Don't sit in it forever. make an action plan and make it simple and make it small and work on it day by day, simple steps.
Yeah, it's simple. And when you probably start, for me, if I was hearing someone tell me this advice when I'm in a slump, I'd tell them where to go as well. Yeah. I'd be like, you don't get where I'm coming from. And that's when mentally I've had to sort of work it out myself. If I don't deal with it and I push it to the side, I'll be triggered about it later on. Yeah. So I need to deal with it there and then and just let it be for what it is. But also remember all the good around me, which is important for everyone to do. We forget the good.
That. Yeah,
and there's a lot of good.
There's so much good, but when you're in a bad way or you're having a bad day, you think everything is bad.
Exactly.
You think you have a bad life, but you don't. No, you don't.
You've got to be grateful for the small things. You've got a roof over your head. You've got food on the table, even if it's 2-minute noodles.
Yeah, that's it.
Migoro, whatever. Be grateful for the small things because there are a lot of people in the world that are worse off, genuinely, and a lot of people who would love to be where you are in life, I think. So
amazing.
Be grateful.
So your message of anything is truly possible really shines bright. So can you tell us your mindset tips as well as any tools that our listeners can take from this episode that they can use when they start to lose sight of who they are or maybe what they're working on in life?
Yeah.
Any little bits and pieces of advice. You gave such a good tip there with the, making a list and making your journal and all of that. But do you have any other little bits of information that you could give?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I've got the gift of the gab. I've always got things. But I love that I feel like I've earned my right now because of what I've gone through. So absolutely. I do speak. One of my biggest things is I go into schools and businesses and speak on the health and wellness topic by drawing on my experiences to provide examples of how you can do things better. And I love that because if I can make a difference in one person's day by sharing and being vulnerable, which isn't always an easy thing too because you put yourself out there for God knows what, but it is what it is. And I love that. I'm very passionate in helping other people. So for me, I think one of the biggest things I think we need to do is, again, I love keeping it simple because we don't want to overstep it, is I always tell people to smile at a stranger. If you're in the supermarket, at a petrol station, wherever you are, if you see someone and they're not even smiling. If you smile at them, that you're going to get a few reactions, right? You're either going to get someone look at you and go, what the fuck is she looking at?
Yeah.
Why is she smiling?
Who are you?
Or they'll look at their body and think, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Or they'll smile back and say hello.
Yeah.
Or they won't acknowledge you and they'll walk off. But then if you turn around and look, they'll look back at you. I've had that one a few times. Or they think you're hitting on them, which is not a good one either.
They're going to think you're trying to pick them up.
Don't wink at anyone, smile.
Yeah.
But smiling at a stranger is a simple form of kindness that can restore people's faith in humanity. And I think that is so important. It's free. And I love that. So that's just something that I always tell people to do. But as far as when it comes to what you as a person you can do, and, I only draw on what experiences I've had, is that, I can't help somebody unless they want to help themselves. And it's simple to make a list. I'm a big list person, but if you're not a list person, you might be able to have a look at some stuff. People say vision boards. I've never actually done a vision board. I'm a big believer of them, but I like to set goals. And I think setting goals, whether it's travel or whatever, there was a period of time in my life that I knew had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew I wanted to work on my friendships and what that looked like. In the world that I'm in with women's empowerment, something I personally do is, again, being in social media. On Instagram, I'll make an effort if I go on Instagram, which I do most days as part of my work, but I will make sure that I comment on another female's page on a picture, which sounds silly. But if someone commented on one of my posts going, "You look great, girl," or "Well done," or, whatever it might be, love hearts. If it's another female or someone giving me that, I'm like, I feel good about myself. Yeah. So I make an effort to go out of my way, and it's a simple thing, again, to make someone else's day. But there are so many different things I could give you advice on in that sense. But I think it all starts with you and as a person.
And with kindness.
Yeah.
I feel like everything you've said really comes down to just being a nice person.
Yeah, and be humble,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
When I won the Australian of the Year awards, when went through that process, one of the most common comments that everyone that's in that alumni has said is that we suffer from imposter syndrome because we don't deserve that title. And it took me a really long time. We can hear that I talk a lot. And I had to film a commercial, which is actually on the Australian of the Year. It's on YouTube if you look up Emmah Money. Because guess what? You can Google Emmah Money now.
Oh, of course you can. You manifested
and I love
that. Yeah.
Which is scary if my daughter starts looking how to Google just because nothing bad, but you just, it's actually out there now.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It is imposter syndrome so I was going to I filmed that commercial, and what happened is it took forever because I just could not swallow that I was holding a flag, not just for myself, but I was holding it for all the people with CF that are no longer here, the newly diagnosed families, the mums, the dads, the grandparents. Then I was holding a flag for disability, visible and invisible. Then I was just holding a flag for women, and these flags I'm all of a sudden holding. I was like, oh my God, I'm accidentally becoming someone of influence, but to do greater good in the world. And it's, again, I was joking with someone yesterday saying, it's very Miss Universe to say it. I just want world peace. But if you want to do good in the world and give back in a nice way, that's all I want, I had a lot of shit growing up in so many ways. And if I can make a positive impact, like I said before, and help someone realise their full potential. Yeah. Now I'm starting to learn that, the right people will surround you and support you. The wrong people, you're always going to have the jealous people. There's always people with negative comments, which, actually that gives me a good point to give you too. You don't have to agree with everyone. You have to, and we have to embrace the differences amongst us, because there is a reason we're all different. We look different, we think different. So I've really learnt to embrace the differences of opinion and, situations. And I might not always agree, I might not always understand, but I'll listen and I'll take that on board and learn. And I think that's really important as well.
So before we wrap up today, what is one piece of advice you wish you could have given your younger self?
Oh, that is a good question. Yeah. I've been asked that a few times. I think don't sweat the small stuff, and tomorrow's another day. It sounds silly. I always feel like a lot of the things I say are silly, but
absolutely not.
I really think that, because while you fall over, you're going to get back up again tomorrow. And I think for me back then, my younger self got so consumed in the world that I was living in, I forgot what I actually wanted in life. And if I'd focused more on where I knew I was going, God knows if I was going to make it there or not. But I always say, Walt Disney says, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I'm a great example of that. Yeah. So maybe just, if you can dream it, you can do it. But I get it now. That's actually really bloody true.
It is. That's amazing. So where can our followers find you? If they want to look into your Instagram or your website, where do they go?
Yeah, cool. So my Instagram is CF Mummy, which is short for cystic fibrosis mummy. Yeah. And then I do have a website as well, which is cfmummy.com.au. But yes, got a lot of exciting things coming up. I've actually got my own podcast coming out next May, which I've titled The Princess of Possible. And I'm her, and I'm actually sharing stories of other inspiring CF people that are, making the impossible possible. But I have a lot of things coming up. May is CF Awareness Month. So there's lots to look at.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for everything you've shared today. Your story is incredible, and I feel so inspired. I was just in awe of everything you've done, everything you've achieved, and I'm excited to see what else you're going to do, because I know it's going to be amazing. So
thank you. And anyone that's listening that wants to reach out, I love being able to reach back to people and connect. So I'm more than happy to, any questions or anything, people can get in touch.
Yes, thank you. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you have taken even just one piece of wisdom from this episode that you can apply to your life to help you grow and be a happier and healthier version of you. Please like, subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and make sure to share us on your socials. Sending lots of love to you all. Bye. Amazing.